Marianne Anderson, Healing Wisdom PDX in Northwest Portland. And today we're at my clinic, and I'm visiting with my good friend Kirsten Evenson, who's got a great story about her journey with having to come to some realization about health and healthcare, and how sometimes we think we're healthy and we're doing all the right things, and we might be, but we might be doing some things that are really just not working for us. So it's really important, I think, to get familiar with your own healthcare, the things that, how things affect you, how food, the environment, exercise, and all of that affects you. So that's what I want to bring a little bit of awareness to. And Kirsten has a great story of her own to tell, how she kind of hit a wall with her healthcare and discovered some things that brought her back to a really good place in her life. So, Kirsten,
great.
welcome.
Yeah, thanks,
Good to
Marianne.
see
It's
you.
great to be
Yeah.
here. Yeah, telling my own story feels a little bit now, because I'm kind of a decade past the crisis point,
Right.
like telling someone else's story. So I'm happy to report that things are much better than they were a decade ago, even though I'm a decade older.
Good to hear.
Yes, so I had considered myself a fairly healthy person. I had gotten acupuncture, I was using naturopaths, I owned an organic farm, have eaten organic most
Wow.
of my adult life, and in general just have lived an outdoor lifestyle. So I had considered myself probably at that time in the top tier of healthy people.
Yeah.
And yet I was suffering from some really chronic issues that just were more and more puzzling to me. It's like, wow, if I, who try to eat, that 3 to 5 recommended servings of fruits and veggies a day, and, I'm outside a lot, and if I'm struggling like this, imagine how awful it must be
Right.
for people who are
not even aware or educated about nutrition and exercise and all of that.
Yeah. And in spite of all of our access to information, it's like I think we have blinders on when it comes to our own health, and it certainly was the case for me. So I, at 50, decided that I was not going to follow down the path of chronic illness like a lot of my family members who have a huge history of heart disease and diabetes and mental health and cancer in my family, and I've just been bound and determined not to go down that road. So I thought, getting really athletic at 50 was going to be it. And indeed, I was lean, I looked great, I was strong, I was fast, and I was taking multiple naps a day. I was sick after every race, and I was starting to have chronic aches and pains that were just really inexplicable. So I was going to doctors. My blood work looked great, of course.
Right.
Just not getting any answers.
Yeah.
So it was finally a physical therapist, personal trainer, a friend of mine who had been doing a little training in my triathlon journey that really recommended I take a hard look at my nutrition. And that was a wake-up call, for sure.
There's some key things in what you said that I think is important to keep in mind, especially in talking about how we can get on board with our own healthcare, and looking at familial disease patterns or things like that. Not to interrupt your story too much, but I think that's an important thing.
It's so key.
That when you are looking at taking care of yourself and figuring out how to get on board with a good health plan that works for you, to know those things, because those are going to be places where you have some deficiencies, and that you learning how to build with those kinds of things, really important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I know you and I have talked in the past too about just the ravages that stress have on our lives. So internal stress, but we're increasingly bombarded with external stressors,
and it's
through
getting
toxins in the
not getting
environment,
better.
toxins in our food, even in our organic food source. So it's just almost impossible, even no matter how aware you are, to live a stress-free life. So at the root of all of those things, as you said, that stress creates the foundation for disease.
Yeah.
So what I did not know at the time is how key plant nutrition was to actually combating the stressors that our body, the oxidation, and certainly as I became an athlete, did not realize how much oxidative stress was happening in my body as a result. And I was not an extreme athlete. I'm not an extreme anything. I was working out maybe 30 to 45 minutes a day, not like the 3-4 hours like you hear. And so I just kept going back to, this cannot possibly be overtraining. And yet I feel like I'm having the symptoms of somebody who was overtraining. But it really, really did come back to just really taking a look at one fact that I learned that was just shocking to me is that I felt like I was doing pretty well at getting like 3 to 5 servings of fresh fruits and veggies a day. As an athlete, 18 to 20 are what are recommended. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a small person, and I don't know how I'm going to eat that many plants in a day.
I know, and I've actually tried. There's one source that I listen to that says 5 cups of greens or vegetables a day, and that's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot to get in, and in a smaller body, it's a lot to digest and get going. But it's important. And one of the other factors is that our food sources are not as vitamin-rich, nutrition that when you read about what the different food sources have as far as iron and magnesium and vitamins and all of that, it's really not that anymore because of our soil and a lot of environmental things.
Yeah.
So
I've seen some really powerful visuals along what you're saying, that a plate of spinach, or the nutrition that you would have gotten out of a plate of spinach in the 40s, pre-industrial revolution, pre-petrochemicals in our soil. We would have to eat almost 10 times that amount now. So then there's a mountain of spinach.
So you do need to factor that into your 5 cups becomes. Is what's in that 5 cups? Is it really doing what it's in? A lot of the really good greens like alfalfa and all the things that give us some really good nutrition have really long taproots.
Interesting.
So they have like 50-foot taproots. So they go down into the soil and pull up nutrients that are really down far. But if you're working with regular vegetables that have small root systems, you're not getting the nutrition from the soil, because the soil, topsoil and down is pretty compromised almost everywhere.
It is. Yeah. I know that what that brings to mind as you're talking, again, just kind of in terms of my own education, thinking I knew a lot and knowing a whole lot more now, is the food miles that our food now travels on average, especially with those of us in colder climes in North America, where our food in the wintertime is traveling thousands of miles sometimes before it hits our table. So the second food comes off the vine, the nutrition content is deteriorating. So that's something that I've really learned. And then the food quality over time, like that we've been talking about. So it's really it's kind of indicative, I think, of how much more we need, and yet how expensive it is to get what we need, and time consuming. I don't know about you, but I love to eat, but I don't love to food prep 20 servings of fruits and veggies every day. I want to be out hiking and doing fun stuff.
Yeah. And it's a lot to consider, because you can do all of those things and still not know how much nutrition is in this food, because where did it come from? What was the environment? So we're not working off great information to begin with.
It's so true. Another thing that I at the time that I was aware of is really how dangerous and ineffective a lot of isolated, fragmented vitamin supplements can be, because they're largely unregulated in this country. Oftentimes, if research is done on the supplements that you find in grocery stores, there is a lot of bad stuff in them, because there isn't a third-party validation.
There's fillers.
Yeah,
there's a lot of fillers.
Yeah, and so I had at the time stopped taking vitamins because I knew that they were bad for me, but I hadn't found anything to fill in yet. until I found a concentrated plant powder program, which helped me in that journey of getting enough as an active person and
Right.
as somebody who was really committed to combating my family DNA.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's a blessing because not only did I learn a lot about plant nutrition, I also kind of gained a community of people who were
Yeah.
really like-minded and, taught me how to cook and taught me about why it's bad to microwave your food, and things like that
Right.
I thought I was pretty aware, but,
Yeah.
there's always more to learn.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you got yourself back on track. I mean, did it start slowly, or did you just get a bright light one day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, it was, I'll tell you, for me, more than things starting to happen are the things that stopped happening.
Okay.
So I started taking a form of concentrated plant powders called Juice Plus, which was
Okay.
the first step in the journey, as well as just learning about this whole world of nutrition. But the next race, which was 6 weeks after I started, I booked my week off of work, which I always did. I always booked a vacation after every race because I knew I was
Right.
going to be
Yeah.
sick. And I had
It's a
been taking
recovery
these
period.
concentrated plant powders, which gave me the phytonutrients of 33 plants. And I was waiting for that illness to come and it didn't come. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. So it's the things that stopped happening. And then I realized, wow, I'm not taking ibuprofen after every race because I'm
Right.
not having the joint pain
Yeah.
that I was having. So it was like, wow, this antioxidant effect that I was hearing the research was
Right.
backing up. The improvements in immune system. I stopped getting sick. The other thing that was happening during that time is that my husband and I experienced a very unexpected move because he had a job change and we loved where we lived. We were in Southern Oregon and we're growing gardens in our backyard and making friends and bike riding and having all sorts of joyful
Good lifestyle.
good life stuff. And all of a sudden we heard that we needed to move, and that was another kind of event that typically in the past had just taken my immune system out.
Yeah.
So I was prepared. I was prepared for the crash, and it didn't happen because I had been taking Juice Plus for
You were able to do it.
about 3 months by the time we moved. And so that's more how I felt the change. Energy started gradually coming back. It's like, wow, I'm not needing to nap every day anymore. And so I feel blessed,
Yeah.
that some people never stumble on magic like this.
Yeah,
And
or
some people
never question really why they're not feeling as well,
Yeah.
or they do,
Yeah.
but the answers just don't come.
Yeah.
What made you link it with your immune system breaking down? What was that realization?
Well, it was the really truly having colds and flus
Okay.
so
So
often,
really
and the chronic
susceptible
fatigue,
to
chronic
anything.
fatigue, just all the time.
Okay.
No matter how much sleep I got or how well I felt like I was eating, I just wanted to sleep
Right.
a lot of the time, and that's not me. Like I'm a
Right.
vibrant person, so
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
something was wrong, and I also knew instinctively that if things kept going down that path, the cancers and the
Right. They're right
autoimmune
behind.
and the breakdown was inevitable because I watched it in my own family.
Yeah.
And I'm working in healthcare for 38
Right.
years, see it all around me.
Yeah.
So as you do,
Yeah.
it's
and
sad.
this is where the stress factor that we talked
Yeah.
about, because when something pushes up against something for too long, it will either push it over or the other side has to push back.
Wow,
And
I love that.
That's kind of where you got lucky.
Yep.
You just pushed back.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think my immune system was pushing back.
Well,
It
that's
was
the
just
push.
that
That's the push that way.
Okay.
You got in and
okay.
you know,
I said,
you have to meet it.
I don't want to be this
Yeah,
sick, this
right?
young. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good.
I do feel incredibly blessed. And then, just connecting with healthcare practitioners like
Right.
you as well. Like,
Yeah.
The healing wisdom of our collective
Yeah.
wisdom is really powerful.
It's really, it's nice. And what I like about doing this is that I think that we all need to jump into to to caring for ourselves and caring for each other. I mean, getting back into community would be nice as opposed to the fractionated kind of culture system we have. But, you know, to get there, you have to find out. You have to learn. It's a re-education of how we think about how our bodies work. What you know, not only just what to eat, but what we just talked about. What we eat, you have to figure out what, you know, what's in it. Where does it come from? So it's a lot of things to know in order to get a handle on everything.
I agree. And I feel like finding a community that kind of does the research for me has been a blessing because honestly, truly, I thought I knew a lot and I knew nothing about GMO food. I knew nothing about the inflammatory nature of dairy and gluten. I knew nothing about the inflammatory nature of a lot of the meats, especially if our meats are, you know, pumped full of hormones. Like, but yeah, I kind of have a one-stop shop, which is just awesome to feel like, you know, my community and my company is doing the research for me. So, and I trust it because then I hear lots of other sources. It's not just coming from one source. It's, it's humbling and important, like you said, to just realize what you don't know and own what you don't know. Be willing to push back. I like that.
You got to push back. Yeah. Well, it's so nice talking to you, Kirsten. And I think I'd like to ask you to stay for another segment or two to talk about some of those things, and we can break down what you did and how maybe other people can do the same thing.
Yeah, I'd be honored. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're going to wrap this session up, and there'll be another section to listen to. So tune in. And we're going to put everything that we're talking about in the podcast in the links below. So any information that you want to get on what Kirsten and I are talking about, just check the links below.